Chapter 9 Satan, the Dark Force. As per Islamic belief, Satan does exist and is referred to as Iblis or Shaitan. Hindu mythology does not have the concept of Satan. However, Rakshasa or demigods are frequently mentioned in Hindu texts and epics. As per canonical Christian narrative, Archangel Michael Demi-Gross prevailed over his twin brother Lucifer after a cosmic fight in heaven. As a punishment, Satan then was hurled down to earth along with other fallen angels. As previously mentioned, our inner God, the white force, is our positive energy within us. So will not Satan, our dark negative energy, be far behind? This dark force makes us commit many evil actions called sins or transgressions. These sins delay the awakening of our sixth element and deter our spiritual progress in seeking the divine. Satan, Lucifer, or the angel of death, swore that he would keep corrupting entire humankind. God too decided to love and forgive human till eternity. Ego or pride, the inner Satan. Aside from ego or pride, we all have many satanic diabolical qualities which drag us down to animal levels. They are anger, cruelty, bullying the weak, lust, envy, jealousy, greed, corruption, hatred, and selfishness. These habits are typical human nature and are useful when they are in moderation. However, the same vices, if unchecked, results in heinous crimes like robbery, kidnapping, rape, violent murders, and even rebellion when they cross the limits. As humans display their brutal animal nature, they usually end up as convicted felons, serving life sentences or face the death penalty. This negative satanic feeling are fueled by the frequent association of friends and enemies or your bosom buddies who indulge you in the endless addiction of liquor and dangerous drugs. The most destructive vice of all, gambling, or a desire to become instant billionaires. Desires, passions, and obsessions are often the root causes of sorrow and usually result in self-destruction. Youth and adults alike commit so many crimes in these harmful pursuits. Humans usually become proud and flaunt their youthful looks, materialistic assets, and finally their knowledge and worldly titles. But they always forget that all the above things change as farther times roll on. So why should we develop any pride or ego over these temporary things of life? Ego, our inner demon. God, our positive energy, has hidden behind the thin veil of ignorance and a heavy curtain of ego. The sign of ego is a murderous satanic red rage which wants to destroy opponents. This rage is a very effective weapon, and it starts working when someone's ego is bruised. When this happens, one feels that it is the supreme goal to exact cruel revenge by destroying the enemies. And this is how Satan can control people through our unfulfilled and bruised egos. Whenever these dangerous levels are crossed, individuals invite the satanic red stress called brutal revenge inside their heart and become their own worst enemies. Alter ego, or the inner demon, is the dark force and symbolizes our negative feelings and cruel nature. That is why we always try to hide or disguise our real emotions from others. This alter ego is greatly displayed in the book or movie Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Humility, Mr. Hyde likes to listen and agree with others, respecting their point of view. Whereas ego, Dr. Jekyll, proudly assumes that he is never wrong and that others should always obey him. So how to explain this thing called ego? It is when we keep on uttering I, me and mine. It is when we say my child, my health, my achievement, my material things. Ego or Satan is usually fond of flaunting material things or bullying people with power. But it is never the true essence of God-fearing humans. The majority of religions have stated that first and foremost, ego has to be sacrificed. Our religions and preachers have not only hinted but have been quite vocal about sacrificing our ego. Meditation experts say there is a thin veil of ignorance and a heavy curtain of ego drawn by the negative energy, that is the Satan. They hide our positive energy of God. One way of diminishing ego is to let our practical brain and heart control us. Humility, compassion, kindness, and love are our true human nature. Asking for forgiveness for our mistakes and forgiving others for their errors is a strong defense against ego. The world is tired of people who think that they are always right or perfect. They often play the Satan part by getting into a shouting match, into an auto-debate mode, if and when opposed. Destructive anger. Our family and friend and enemies, relations, civilized and educational upbringing, and our religious belief or tenets play an essential role in how much we can resist our bad habits or vices. Anger, like any other feeling, is always of two kinds. Feelings like anger, greed, attachment, envy, love, and hate are normal human feelings and are the essence of a human being as our positive energies. As they say, diplomacy or tact teaches us to smile in unfavorable circumstances at our enemies. A smiling face and a forgiving nature can avoid many troubles and can even win over enemies. Children have this easygoing quality as they fight and reconcile easily, and we should often learn from them. Anger is of two types. First is the righteous anger, which is often displayed while defending the weak and the prisoner's rights. The intense emotions that parents or teachers or people in high positions and military or religious departments need to show in the line of duty are righteous anger. The second type of anger is when it takes the form of a personal revenge. We call it crossing the invisible limit or line, and it drags us to animal or satanic levels. All elements of nature, especially fire and water, also teach us the importance of limitations. Until fire and water are in proper proportion, they are protective and useful for us. But when the same elements gather strength beyond the limit, they manifest a potent form of a destructive force that is very difficult to control. The same can be said for our vices, especially anger. The second type of anger is destructive. The simple cause of this type of offense is whenever circumstances become unfavorable, causing us some loss. That is the time destructive anger enters our mind and takes us under its influence. Anger usually travels from head until it reaches our toes. Whenever we are opposed, initially, the head suddenly becomes hot, along with the ears. Then our eyebrows rise, followed by snorting of the nostrils. Like wild animals, we start to exhale heavy breaths. We and others soon quietly notice the redness of the eyes and the smirks and sneers of our lips. These things happen on our face in a silent sequence. Until this stage, we have some chance to avoid or delay the invasion of violent anger and its after effects. Until this time, the anger feeling is normal, justified, and controlled. Hereafter, the teeth start grinding, and soon the long tongues take over. After a slight delay, a barrage of soft and loud insulting words is uttered from the mouth. We may call this a 6 or 9 situation. It means that if you place the number 6 or 9 in the middle and tell rivals to stand opposite each other, each will see a 6 or a 9 from their perspective, and both will believe that two different things as facts. Both will think that they are correct and start an endless verbal battle of he said, she said debate. Until this stage, anger is normal and justified. Let us see how it reaches a dangerous satanic level. This verbal battle leads to a bigger and louder word war as anger now reaches the throat level. It is hard to understand why people shout in a loud voice at each other, even though they are standing near each other or are closely related before the feud. The logical reason is that Satan has let hatred cloud their sanity. Hereafter, the person cannot control his tongue and even forgets where he is standing or to whom he is talking. Others, who wonder why these people are shouting, hear a louder voice and foul vocabulary. The reason for shouting is due to the red mist as their hearts have drifted apart. Supporters then jump in and somehow try to ally themselves in this word war. They seldom end up calming down the rivals and usually feeding fuel to the growing dangerous snitch of anger. This angry verbal assault becomes a shouting match, and loud insulting words are now heard and felt by the emotional heart. Once the heart is hurt, it starts in a me against you, long-lasting seething feud. After this, fist fight follow, including heavy kicking of the legs or a total do-or-die brawl as a last resort. With the help of a nearby small or big objects, the war gets into a more severe level, resulting in a full-fledged physical fight, resulting in a possible serious injury. Only after a grave injury or even fatal death has occurred, the individual may fully grasp what monsters they had become under the influence of anger. A sudden calmness may descend on them, but they will still remain in a sort of hazy red mist. This step-by-step theory of how destructive anger usually drags down people to a satanic, barbaric, animal level. Two animals fighting inside us. We often feel that there are always two animals, good and bad, fighting inside us. A continuous inner battle seems to be raging between our good and bad intentions. We remain in a constantly confused state of mind when making minor or major decisions. So we may ask, which animal will win and why? Wise men have coined their spiritual answer as whichever animal you will feed or associate with the most. When we work to satisfy the will of the divine desires, we succeed in being just, kind, forgiving, compassionate, and loving in our life. These divine qualities becomes the primary positive cause for our success in this world. Like our Creator, we learn to live in moderation, gratitude to the world, and become givers. We see multiple miracles or positive things happening around us, even when facing adverse or unfavorable circumstances. However, when we amass things beyond limits, we voluntarily enter Satan's home grounds or give in to the endless temptations of greed. Initially, this may bring us temporary happiness, but we end up as permanent takers. What benefits a man if he were to win the whole world, but loves his very soul in exchange for Satan? In the karmic world, good deeds are like cash payments. We pay first, and crimes are like credit cards, where the payment is delayed or carried forward in this life or beyond. Our inner karmic free will usually decides on the consequences of our actions and whether God, positive force, will prevail over opposing satanic party. The tongue usually creates many reasons and a direct invitation to Satan to enter the heart and body. Once Satan and his assistants have entered your body, they will not leave quickly. They will inflict maximum stress on your body, causing physical or mental illness. Bad karmas will also be accumulated as we become victims of various intoxicating addictions, burn in the fire of revenge, and continue to live in negative and depressions. You will feel that you are burning in the fire of anger and vindication in the so-called hell. This stage of hell is when someone has badly bruised your ego and you have promised to take revenge against those who oppose you, regardless of the results. A classic example is that if you were to hold a burning iron rod to harm others, however, without realizing it, the first thing we are actually burning is our own hands. Another metaphor of revenge aptly puts revenge as a toxic poison stored inside the jars or our bodies. This poison will turn into stress and destroy us first, while we patiently bide our time to destroy our enemies. So an act of egoistic revenge will always hurt us first and bring the deadly karmic boomerang back to us. We will end up destroying our inner peace of mind and all our relation in this self-destructive process. After we have read and understood or accepted this knowledge, it should set us free from all the delusions of the danger of anger or our alter ego. We should realize how easily we fall prey to our hostile satanic forces. Then and then alone, with a calm, mature, and stable mind, can we prevail over our daily inner battles. Can religion and politics mix? The pros of politics, they are: primitive man was uncivilized, who brutally destroyed any rivals or opponents, be it be wild animals or fellow humans. The strong has always bullied and prevailed over the weak. Politics started to govern humans with an iron fist, using the two most feared penal punishments in human society, that is, jail term or the death penalty. This has brought a very chilling or calming effect on those brutal, uncivilized primitive men. Thus, we can say that politics initially created a climate of fear and thus controlled human wild urges of abusing the weak to some extent. The cons of politics. As they say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So as time passed, this control created a sort of egoistic, godly attitude in the politicians. Most of the politicians were overpossessive of their thrones and considered them as their personal property. This system was further fueled by the fulfillment of their whims and desires since childhood. Politicians grew up to become stubborn, egoistically cruel, and greedy beyond human standards. Tribal chiefs and king had life and death control over their subjects, spanning generations and centuries. Keeping the masses into total submission and collecting taxes under all circumstances became the vital two function. As time has changed, these two functions are still disguised under different titles and computations. History has rarely witnessed leaders who ascended the seat of power with a genuine will to serve the people. It was only after the seeds of democracy were sown in republics that humans have been able to reach a civilized form of government that seems to work on the surface. As we all know, the attraction of the throne or the seat of power is still responsible for many wheeling and dealing immoral acts, even in modern day politics. So again we ask, can religion and politics mix? The answer is made clear in our sermons and discourses in our respective TMCs. For example, the Gospel states that Jesus Christ was offered rulership over all kingdoms of the world, but he refused. He was then offered to become a king. He again refused. For Christians, Jesus' life can offer many lessons that can be applied in today's circumstances. The teachings of various religions can offer mutual tolerance regardless of one's professed faith. When politics control religion, it usually invites destructive radical elements that de-establishes a country and create lawlessness. This causes political turmoil, social chaos, and confusion. Anarchy casts a shadow of doubt on the religious beliefs and defeats the religion's real agenda as violence and hatred replaces peace and love. Individuals misinterpret holy scriptures and succeed in creating strife, confusion, and chaos. This situation brings a feeling of inferiority for other religions, and the people of different faiths are viewed as mortal enemies rather than fellow brethren. Everything in this world, including religion and politics, has become a number game. Though times have changed, but make no mistake, every religion and politics is using time to win an age-old recruiting in a dominant race by taking full advantage of modern technology. Social media has found many practical and faster ways to get ahead in this number game. Anyone can become the modern-day Nostradamus and predict which religion and country will win this race and eventually, by sheer numbers, will control the world in the future. As history has proven, the majority anywhere and everywhere echoes the same egoistic boast. Either sit with us as our allies or stand against us as our enemy. If this situation arises, my fearless prediction is that the theocracy may rule before the 21st century, if not sooner. So again we ask, can religion and politics mix as a last resort? But for a minute, let us play the devil's advocate and agree that even though religion and politics, which are like water and oil, or like petrol and fire respectively, should and cannot miss. From experience, politics and religion are a dangerous blend of two very public and power institutions. God forbid if some unavoidable circumstances arises and there is no choice but for them to mix as a last resort. Great thinkers has warned us why immoral people give in to great temptations of this world, resulting in corruption and degradation in society. The thinkers further advise that the future leaders should rule as dedicated patriots and never as fanatics. They should mentally and morally understand the sweet poison of temptations and wield this double-edged sword called absolute power with great caution. Below are some great dynamic leadership qualities for the coming generation. If our young and impulsive leaders heed all these rules and follow attributes, then maybe, just maybe, any form of government, including theocracy, may be attempted as a political experiment, but only as a last resort. They should act as public servants and not as masters of the masses. Political decisions should be taken for the greater good and not for personal gains. A ruler has no relatives nor friends. Justice should always prevail. Protection, happiness, and goodwill of all the classes should be the government's premium goal. Think of God as your guide or boss and his benevolent and compassionate will become a beacon, and democracy shall always shine and be protected. Rule with a compassionate heart of humanity. Heed the spirit of the law and not the letter of the law. Using your political power for exploiting others will reap bad karmas in this life and beyond. Finally, the question, how will history judge my reign, should be the constant vision with idols and morality as the ethical barometer. Joke time! Hunting flies. On a Sunday afternoon, a woman walks into the house and sees her husband swatting flies. Wife, surprised, what on earth are you doing? The husband says, can't you see? I'm swatting flies. Well, killed any? Husband, proudly, yep, killed 3 males and 4 females. Wife, intrigued, how can you tell which are male and which are female? The husband smugly says, well, 3 were on the beer can, so they were male, and 2 were on the phone, and the other 2 were on the mirror, so they were females.